Hey guys, Hackexploit here, back again with another video, and in this video we're going to be looking at how to evade or bypass antivirus softwares using veil evasion. Now again, this was a highly requested video and a lot of you guys had asked me to do it, even stretching as far as last year. And finally it's come to my attention right now because it is the current video on the list. That being said, let's get started. So why is this so important for a penetration tester? Well, essentially what happens is you create an exploit or a payload, and when it's time to send it to the target via whatever means, whether you're using social engineering or you're able to send the payload to the target using an email or whatever means you use, the antivirus software ends up detecting the payload and your attack fails. So again, it is very important to understand how antivirus softwares work and how to evade them. Now, that being said, there isn't a way of going about it that will give you 100% evasion. You might reach 98 or 99% if you're lucky. And we'll be talking about this because I am going to make a series on this because it is quite a complicated topic and there are many ways of going about it. So what we're going to be looking at is how to evade some of the most popular antivirus softwares, most specifically the Windows Defender antivirus software, because that is the one that people usually have installed. Now I know many other people have third-party antivirus softwares like Avira, Kaspersky, etc., but we're going to be focusing on antivirus softwares that are signature based. Alright, so essentially what signature-based antivirus softwares do is they look for strings. Now obviously they have a database of these strings that they can pull from and therefore identify any of these strings in a program or an executable file, which in most cases is how the payload is set up in. It could be in a Java file or a jar file, but in most cases when you're sending a payload, it's in an exe file. Now this method can also work for a remote access tool, but we're not going to be focusing on that right now. And I said, as I've mentioned previously, you can use different methods, which we'll be looking at after this, to further your evasion protocol or your evasion percentage. Now when I talk about this, I'm talking about file splitting and hexadecimal editing, because you can go into these executable files, split them up, and then edit them with a hexadecimal editor and get rid of those strings, therefore decreasing the chance of the antivirus software detecting the payload or the executable file that is obviously trying to harm that computer. That being said, I am running a Windows 7 virtual machine here. This is going to be our target virtual machine, and obviously my host operating system is Kali Linux. Now, to get veil evasion installed, it doesn't come pre-installed with Kali Linux. You need to just use the aptitude package manager, which can be done by apt-get install veil evasion or veil. I'm not quite sure whether it's veil or veil evasion, but any of those will start downloading it for you. It isn't a big file at all. Once it's done, you essentially, after it's done, you want to start configuring it. So you would go into the directory, which is the user share library, and then the veil evasion folder. If you want me to make a separate video on how to install it, I will do so, because it is quite a lengthy install, because you also have to install dependencies like Python to Windows, and Ruby. Alright, these are all important prerequisites and files that you will need to convert the Python or the Ruby payloads into an executable file. Alright, so to get veil evasion started, it's really very simple. By the way, after you've installed veil evasion, what you need to do is you need to restart your computer, because if you start it directly after installing it, it does come with a few errors and you might get a little bit worried, but don't worry, just restart your computer and start veil evasion again. So you start it with veil, as you can see, and now it's going to tell you that you have two tools loaded. You have veil evasion and ordnance. We want to use veil evasion, so the syntax is quite simple. It is use, and we're going to select option 1 because we want to use veil evasion. So there we are, we're going to say use 1, and now it's going to give us the veil evasion menu, and it's going to say we have 41 payloads loaded. So we want to list the payloads or the available payloads. So I'm going to say list, and it's going to display all the payloads we have. Now, this is very interesting because these are all the payloads that you can use and will be converted. Now, if you remember, in one of my earlier videos when we were talking about Python programming and creating hacking tools, we discussed a little bit on low-lying level languages such as C++, Ruby, and Python isn't one of them. For example, you can see that we have a Go. This is Golang, Google's programming language, which is also very low-lying, which means it's very close to a machine language. Now, these programming languages are very hard to detect or are very tricky for antivirus softwares to detect because they are very low-lying level languages. Now, by default, a Python payload like this reverse TCP interpreter, which is what we're going to be using right now, and I'll show you, will evade Windows Defender, but it will not evade antivirus softwares like Avira, Kaspersky, because Python is a very, very high level language, which means it's interacting with the software more, which means again, it's very easy to be triggered or to be detected by the antivirus software. Now we'll also be looking at how to use Ruby, which is much more less detectable than Python. But again, we'll be also focusing on the other ones, the other payloads options that we can use here, like the injection, the shellcode injection, which we'll talk about in a few seconds. But for now, let's start off with a reverse interpreter session, reverse TCP, which is Python here. So we're going to select use 28, use option 28. All right, and now it's going to ask you to enter your listening, your L host, and you want to remember your L port, or you can change it to whatever you want. That's if you're using port forwarding. We want to select our L host. So this is essentially your host operating system IP address. So you can just perform a quick ifconfig, like so, ifconfig, and get it. Mine is 192.168.1.105. Excellent. So we're going to set our L host. So the syntax is quite similar to that of Metasploit. So L host and 192.168.1.105, and I'm going to hit enter. All right, now we've set the L host. All we can do now is we can hit generate. All right, when we hit generate, it's going to generate the payload for us. So I'm just going to hit generate. Now make sure you have all the dependencies installed in forms of Python, the Python to exe or Python to win as it's called, and I'm going to hit enter. It's going to ask you to select a base name for your output file. So this comes in place when you're talking about social engineering. So we can say, for example, something like Python setup. We can say x86, just to make it believable, x86, and we're just going to hit enter. And now we want to use PyInstaller. You can also use Python to exe if you want to, but I prefer PyInstaller. It's much more convenient. I'm going to hit 1. All right, and now it's going to prompt you, or it's going to start generating the exe file. So give it a few seconds here. And once you've selected your choice, again, if you've installed all the dependencies, it should start it up. And there we are. It's going to start the process of converting the Python payload into an executable file. All right, so give it a few seconds to generate it, and once it's done, it's going to display the display the output folder. So as you can see here, it's given us the payload module, which is Python interpreter, reverse TCP, and the executable is written to the var library veil folder and output compiled python setup.exe. So we're going to hit enter to continue. All right, now what we need to do now is we need to actually browse to that directory. Now I have the directory open, so it's var library veil output compiled, and here it is, the Python setup 32bit.exe. And now we need to copy it over to my Windows operating system here. And to do that, I'm just going to plug in my flash drive. Just give me a few seconds, guys. So I'm just going to plug it in here. There we are. And now what I need to do now is I need to go into my virtual machine and go into my removable devices and silicon. There we are. It is connected. So, whoops, let me just go back a directory. Let me copy this, and I'm going to put it on my flash drive. So there we are. I'm just going to paste it in there. So this would be also another attack vector where you give someone a flash drive and you tell them there's a Python setup there. And in most cases, it might work. But again, this is not a video focused on social engineering. So I'm just going to eject it, and we're going to go into VM, and we just want to make sure it is ejected. So we're just going to hit disconnect. And now we need to go into Windows, and we need to go back into VM, removable devices, and we want to go to silicon and connect. And there we are. We're going to hit OK. And for some reason, my mouse always lags when I change my removable devices. There we are. So it should have connected the USB flash drive. Let me just check that. Apologies for my virtual machine being so slow. So there we are. No, I do not want to continue scanning it. I'm going to open the folder and files. And what I want to do now is, whoops, for some reason I minimized that and my virtual machine is really lagging out, man. That's a pity. Sorry about this, guys. If it is lagging out, my sincere apologies. So there we are. That's the file that we've been looking for. It is the Python setup, and as you can see, it does look legit. So if we copy it into our desktop, you can see that Windows Defender is not going to detect anything. And now we want to set a reverse handler here. So we're going to use Metasploit now. So we're just going to open up another terminal here because we want to perform the listening. So new window, because that is a reverse TCP interpreter session. So I'm going to MSF console, and there we are. We're going to hit MSF console. And by the way, after you've generated the payload with Veil Evasion, you can perform an online scan for antiviruses. And what I've found with the Python version is half of the antiviruses will not detect it. Now, again, this is focused more on the Windows Defender side of things, and this will probably evade Windows Defender, I would say 98% of the time. When I say 98%, I'm giving the other 2% into the fact that Windows may patch this. However, you can always use low-lying level languages like Ruby, Golang, or C++, but it's really, really complicated to generate a payload with C++. And I'll explain that in a later video. As I still have to continue my Python programming tutorials, and I'm also going to start the C++ keylogger tutorials. All right, awesome. So now we want to use the exploit multi-handler. Multi-handler. And now we want to say use Python meterpreter reverse TCP. Is it an exploit? Yeah, there we are. That's the one. Python meterpreter reverse TCP. And now if we show the we want to select payload. Actually we want to select the payload. So sorry, we just need to exit. I'm not actually using this exploit. So MSF console, sorry about that, guys. Got a little bit confused there. Got a little bit carried away. So as I was saying, this would probably evade Windows 7, Windows 8, 8.1, and also 10, the earlier versions. I'm not sure whether it will evade Windows 10, but we'll probably look at that in the future. But many of you guys have been asking for this, how to use Veil Evasion. And if you want the installation video, just let me know in the comment section, and I'll make it, because the truth is it is quite complicated to get it set up. But if you have managed to do it, then you're pretty much good to go. All right, so let's start the Metasploit framework here. For some reason, my virtual machines are really, really lagging right now. So again, use exploit the multi-handler. Select payload, and we're going to say here the Python meterpreter reverse TCP, and I'm going to hit enter. Use payload. Sorry about that. I'm really getting confused today. Use payload. There we are. And once it uses the payload, once we have selected the payload, we then need to just set the L host, which is our current IP address, the host IP address. Failed to load module. Use payload. Well, hold on about this. Set payload. Sorry about that, guys. My apologies. I've got a little bit confused with Veil Evasion and this, because the commands are slightly different, and I've been using the command line, but that's no excuse. So I've set the payload. Now we need to set the L host. L host. And the L host is 192.168.1.105. So this is your host operating system or Kali Linux IP address. So I'm going to hit enter, and we've set the L host, and now we're just going to hit run. All right, and it started the reverse TCP handler. And now what we need to do is we need to run this application. So I'm just going to run it, and it'll probably tell us that it stopped working. For some reason my Windows has crashed here, for some reason. Oh, there we are. they'll launch give it administrator privileges, and there you are, Meterpreter session opened, and Windows was not able to detect anything, and the program was able to evade Windows Defender. So you can see it definitely works, and you can go ahead and use the Meterpreter session if you want to. Now, when we're talking about the other ways of using veil evasion, and I'm probably just going to end the video here because I want to cover file splitting and hexadecimal editing in the next video, which will come shortly after this one. But if you want to use veil evasion, what I would recommend is to go through the other options that it does provide you with. And you might be asking, what am I talking about? Well, I'm talking about the payloads that you can use. So if I go back to list here, you can see that I have the Ruby Meterpreters here, which sorry about that if you can hear a dog barking in the background, I apologize for that. What I would recommend is to use the option 39, which will generate it in Ruby, and then finally you can then use Metasploit again to perform the reverse Meterpreter to give you to handle the reverse connection. All right. That being said, you can perform different scans on these on the payloads or the executable files that you generate. But you can see that with veil evasion, it is all dependent on payloads. Now, in the next set of videos in this series, where we're talking about antivirus evasion, I'm going to be talking about file splitting, which really works. To your surprise, you don't need to change anything about the file. You split the files and then you edit the strings with the hexadecimal editor. But it is quite complicated, and I'll show you how to perform the calculations, because there is and are a lot of arithmetic calculations involved, scientific arithmetic calculations. That being said, that's going to be it for this video, guys. The SS7 video is scheduled to be out tonight, latest tomorrow morning, but it should be out on the website, so just stay tuned for that. I will be posting updates on Twitter as to when it will be uploaded. That being said, guys, if you found value in this video, please leave a like down below. If you have any questions or suggestions, let me know in the comment section or on my social networks, and I'll be seeing you in the next video. Peace, guys.